First of all, thank you all for honoring all of us here with your time and coming to this. This is incredibly important to our efforts in policing all of our communities and building confidence in our police departments so that they truly can serve all of us.
On average, Connecticut law enforcement agencies conduct approximately 550,000 traffic stops every year. We have a website, ctrp3.org, stands for the Connecticut Racial Profiling Prohibition Project. The disparities aren't gone yet. We still have work to do in a lot of areas.
Change is slow, but it's slower if you are not about the business of engaging in the dialogue that's going to make it where we would have it be. And there begins the dialogue.
We take complaints of discrimination where things have gone wrong or awry. Racial profiling is illegal. Who thinks that they know what illegal discrimination is? You're brave, right here in the front. Yes, what is illegal discrimination? You are very wise. So it is difference in treatment. When you have that keen understanding from youth, that's so important. You're being educated well. It's difference in treatment based on a person's membership in a protected class.
I represent the Connecticut Police Chiefs Association on the Racial Profiling Board. We live in tough times in these United States right now, particularly when it comes to policing. We need police, as my colleague on the board has pointed out. We are committed professionals in my organization, and I look around the room and see other law enforcement officers and prospective officers in the Coast Guard. We want to make sure that we're doing our jobs the best way we can.
I just want to contribute whatever I can. The fact that everybody's here, even recognizing that there's an issue, speaks volumes for everybody here. I think that the kids here are probably like the most important people to be here. A lot of times as adults we get stuck in our ways, and it's hard to see that there's an issue with yourself because it's so easy to see what you do right instead of the one thing you do wrong.
I'm a state representative for New London, new this year to the legislation. I am also a police officer, be 20 years this year. I don't think enough people are educated to know when they're racially profiled. And I think that is something that we need to keep putting out education in regards to that. But I can tell you that I believe that it's not everyone, that it's a handful of people that give us the racial profiling problem.
The NAACP is the oldest civil rights organization in the world. Policing is probably the most difficult job a person can do. But with that being said, it's also important that they do that difficult job within the restraints of the law. Our goal has been to bring police and communities together so that we could build a relationship where there is a mutual trust and a mutual respect. It's a very important but difficult walk to walk in terms of the balance between policing and building a relationship with the community.
Sometimes prosecutors, we get a bad reputation. We get the reputation that we're only out there to convict people. And I want to try to tell you guys that's not the case. Our job is to make sure that justice is done. That means that we should do the best we can to convict the guilty, but also to make sure that the innocent are protected. New London's my home. I was born and raised in New London. I went to grammar school. I went to junior high school here. Then I went to St. Bernard's, and I still live in southeastern Connecticut. My parents lived and died in New London. So to see New London take these steps to better understand and better communicate and open the lines of communication is something that is very important to me.
I believe that this is a great opportunity. Communities need routine opportunities to engage in conversations and discussions which may be uncomfortable. I'm particularly invested in this. One, because I'm a police officer. Two, I'm a man of color. I know what it's like and feels like. I'm a father of a young man who I'm concerned about, and I've had that talk with. But I think it's very important that we engage in these opportunities to get our opinions across, because that's how we're going to develop the credibility, the trust in one another.
When you say legal profiling, do you mean it's just for police, or is it for like other contexts too, like stores and stuff like that?
It is illegal to discriminate or treat individuals differently because of their protected class status. So it's employment, housing, credit transactions, and in places of public accommodation. So it spans far beyond just in policing. You can file a complaint. You don't need an attorney. It is a free process. It's a process that has been established by the state of Connecticut. We are a state agency because our mission is to eliminate discrimination through enforcement, advocacy, and education. A complaint of discrimination must be filed within 180 days from the date that you knew or should have known of the discrimination.
The fact that people are here. Cheryl grew up, Hartford, Cheryl?
Yes.
Hartford, Cheryl became attorney. I point that out just to demonstrate to young people there's so much you can do to make what we're discussing go away. If you are playing a role like Cheryl is playing, you can do that. You can do that. So when you leave here tonight, don't forget it. Don't forget it. You can be what you want to be. Just have to set out and start doing it.
If you don't first feel confident that the police themselves are not going to be on your side, you might lash out, or you might say, no, I'm leaving. I'm not staying here. They're just going to arrest me. So, and then you'll actually probably be in the wrong from trying to like leave the scene or something. So first and foremost, like it's all a symptom, but the root of the problem is confidence and understanding of like different sides, different spectrums.
My name is Maya Shepard. I am a community member and community organizer. I just want to ask a little more around like these numbers that we're seeing, and if anyone can speak to like specifically like what training are police receiving to kind of combat these numbers.
Some of the most important work that we do to try and address some of the numbers that I showed before was we do something in Connecticut that no other state does, except for Rhode Island, because we do it in Rhode Island now. Oftentimes, researchers come in. You could just type in racial profiling police into Google, and you'll see all sorts of studies that have been done all over the country. And oftentimes, researchers come in and they charge a lot of money, and they'll do a big academic study, and they'll say, okay, you guys have a problem. And then they'll say, thank you, collect their check, and they say, see you later. And so what we've tried to do in Connecticut is not stop that conversation. We've tried to not just produce a report that points the finger at police departments and says, all right, good luck, we'll see you next year, and we have to do this again. We actually go in and work with those departments to try and better understand what are the factors that are driving that disparity. The truth of the matter is that we've done that now 31 times, where we've identified 31 departments, and we said, okay, we're gonna come and work with you now, and we're gonna try and better understand how it is that you do your work, and we're gonna try and better assess what specific factors about your community are causing these disparities to occur. And then we're gonna see if there are some things that you can change, some recommendations we can make to reverse those trends. And I actually want Chief Fasaro to weigh in not only on the training piece, but also Groton Town was one of those towns that we were able to do that work with. And it not only informs the department of ways that they can improve, but it also informs us. You can't just point the finger, and you can't just stop having a conversation. To be honest with you, like I said, I've gone now to 31 police departments to do this work. There isn't always agreement.
What I found the most productive part of the whole process wasn't the numbers you see on the screens, wasn't the data that was put together. It was how that data came about and what conversations occurred after the fact. Those were the most productive. And I know the first time I went up and discussed this with Ken and his staff, we kind of said, here's some compelling reasons about my community, why it's different than some others, and why these factors may contribute to this issue. That has since, I think, helped to shape some of the activities that are going on now with the project as a whole. I think, I've taken on this position as a member of the advisory board from the police chiefs because of my experience there. And we, as a group, I think, are all committed to making sure that when this process goes through, it's the most productive way it can be. It's conducted in the most productive way it can. And that really is that dialogue that happens after the fact, to get community members involved, to get the police involved, to get Ken and his staff in to say, hey, this is what we've come up with. Let's take a look at it. Why does this occur? Is this a problem? Is it not a problem? If it is, how do we fix that? And if it's not, how do we explain it? The unfortunate part of my occupation, and for those in uniform around here, is a lot of times when we engage with the public, unlike firemen, we don't engage with them at the best times, right? We don't get to hand out the checks from the lottery commission, so we don't engage with people in the best of times. Let's face it, not every cop is perfect. We do get our folks from the human race, so we've got some people that have their own flaws and failings in their lives. So, but I hope that answers your question about the training. Are we better at it today than we were? Absolutely. Is it perfect? Is there more work to do as far as training? Yes. Yes, we need to do that, and not just in this area, in a lot of areas, and I think that we're working towards that.
Right here, sir.
Something just like popped in my head, right? So if I'm not disputing what you're saying, I think that honestly, like I've been arrested a bunch of times, long time ago.
What was
Long
that?
time ago. Been arrested a bunch of times, long time ago. And I have no problem with it. I actually have friends, like I can honestly say friends, not like in passing, that are like officers, that are probation officers, that are police officers. I work with correction officers like in my other business. And we have a difficult job too because we run a bar. And every single dispute that we have with somebody is someone who's impaired in some way. And we pride ourselves in the fact that we feel like we do a great job. And that's not just us saying it, like even like the police in New London, they know what our business reputation was before, and they know what in the last 3 years like we've done. To say that each situation is like bringing bad news. So all right, domestic violence situation, right? Police are called. For every single person who hates you for showing up to that call, there's one or maybe more people who love you. Domestic violence situation, this guy's out of control, this lady's out of control, they're causing turmoil. You bring peace to that household, might be 5 kids there. Those 5 kids are happy, they view you in a positive light, you just saved their mom, right? The only person who would have an issue with that would be the person who's the aggressor. So if that were an actual true assessment, then that means that more people would have a positive view from the police than negative, if that were the case. If there's someone breaking into someone's home, you have thousands of people in that neighborhood who are happy that that person was caught. You know what I mean? Like, so if that's the case, then that's not the actual reason why there's a negative view of police. I think the biggest reason why is accountability. And it's not fair to the police. It's not fair to society. It's not fair to police because if a cop says, yeah, I'm stressed out, man, I think I need to talk to somebody, they'll be looked at as if they can't handle their job. Or they'll be looked at as if it's like they're weak. But truth be told, the threat, even if as a cop you never dealt with a situation where you were in a life or death situation, just the fact that you leave the house every day not knowing if you're gonna come home to your kids, that constant threat can cause PTSD. And if an officer involved shooting happens or if a violent situation happens, then you say, okay, we'll pull you off, you go to counseling, you do this, you do that. But what if that doesn't happen? What if just after 15 years it's just like being nervous of leaving the house, looking at your kids every day, not knowing if you're gonna see them or not, the stress of having to work a shift and missing their game, this, that, and the third. There should be some form of like mandated counseling at all times, because if it's such a tough job, if it's a stressful job, which it is, you should, shrinks, like psychologists, they're mandated to talk to somebody, not because something bad happened, but because it's a stressful situation, just hearing about other people's stressful situations. Police hear about people's situations all the time. Not for nothing, they put themselves in difficult situations, but if there were a history of an officer going to ask for help, when something happens, then that puts the department at risk because, well, this is an officer who needed help and you guys didn't pull him. No, they're just human, bro. You get what I'm saying? But we hold this standard that all this pressure is put on a person and there's no recourse for it. There's like, you have to be perfect at your job, you have to be strong, but then if you need help, it's always worst case scenario. And then the worst part of that is, if you do end up in a bad spot, everyone shuns you, right? Because they say, well, that's only a handful of people that did that. If an officer ends up getting in a bad spot, it's, oh, well, that was he was the exception to the rule. There's no way that this much negative view of police is because of the few. It's not like 2 officers out of every department might be doing this. And that's why, and that's what we always say, it's like, well, it's a small group. It's not, bro. It can't be, because if it was such a small group, then that wouldn't be the consensus.
And I say education first, because you have to educate someone before you can train them. If a person doesn't know, training's gonna do very little.
I'm sure I could go outside now with my vast knowledge of motor vehicle laws and find some technical reason to pull everybody over. So we always start from that point, that there is a level of discretion in terms of what law enforcement choose to do. And so the chief at the time was very clear. He said, listen, it's part of our DUI enforcement strategy. You know, we send our officers out during peak drinking hours on days of the week when we know drunk drivers might be out there, and we say, listen, we want you interacting with motorists. Stop cars for any reason you can. Interact with the motorist. Where are you coming from? Where are you going to? Have you had a drink tonight? By the way, your taillight's out. And, you know, assuming that the individual wasn't intoxicated, these people aren't receiving tickets. They were told, okay, thank you, have a nice day. What we tried to, impress upon the department was, well, that is only because of where the enforcement is being done, impacting your minority community. And it's likely leaving the community feeling a certain way when it happens repeatedly only in that neighborhood, right? And they have those types of stops tend to have a longer kind of connotation about, pretextual, right? They have kind of a perception that they're pretextual nature, and in fact they were, but the purpose was to find drunk drivers. So the next logical question I asked was, okay, well, is it successful? Because the truth is that if it's a successful strategy and the police come forward and say, look at all the drunk drivers we got off the road and we made the roads safer, then you can go back to your community and you can say, listen, we understand that an unintended consequence of this enforcement strategy is that a larger percentage of minority drivers get caught in the net. But we got drunk drivers off the street. And the truth is that, again, because of the nature of the job and the complexities of understanding this, the department didn't know. They didn't know how many drunk drivers. They said, well, we've done it a long time. Sure, it's effective. And so we said, well, let's help you go back and evaluate it. And we came back about a month later, and I remember sitting around the table saying to the administrators, what would success look like? What percentage of these stops would you have to find a drunk driver in order for you to feel satisfied justifying, the disparity that is driving? And the chief had set the standard of 10%, which I thought was pretty high, right? Okay, 150, 160 drunk drivers, would mean that was a successful strategy. I said, how many drunk drivers do you think you found? And we went around the table and everybody guessed somewhere between 100 and 200 drunk drivers. And I said, would you be surprised to know that you found one drunk driver using this strategy? Right? And the truth is they didn't know. And so now, equipped with the data and equipped with the knowledge, we then were able to go back and say, okay, well, these are the actual enforcement techniques that do get drunk drivers off the street. And these are the stops that led to more drunk drivers. And so if you redirect your officers to look for those violations, right, they'll have a better likelihood of getting drunk drivers off the street, and you'll drastically reduce your racial disparity in your data. And hopefully along the way, you're increasing trust between the community you serve and law enforcement. And so that's some of the work that goes on when you're able to work and meet with a department and engage in these conversations, is give them information they didn't know before. And my goal is to always try and create win-win-win situations. Can we Get more drunk drivers off the street? Can we reduce the disparity, and can we increase trust between police and the community?
But at the same time, the community has to be willing to stop doing things that sometimes create situations.
Here's my body camera. You're on candid camera right now. Who wants to have everything they do from the moment they come to work till the moment they leave recorded, up to and including every conversation, every interaction? It wasn't a popular decision. I've reviewed some body camera footage with members of the NAACP from New London when a question arose, and I'm proud of the actions of my officers. But if there was improprieties or if there's things that happen that shouldn't happen, this gives me the information I need.
We get complaints of discrimination against police departments all across the state of Connecticut. No specific area in Connecticut is immune. I've received cases from all over. And I think as a state and as a nation, we have to acknowledge that there is this floss of systemic discrimination that is a part of many of our systems, our educational system, sometimes our criminal justice system, sometimes our policing system. So it's not a specific individual police officer that may be, as people have talked about, a bad apple or there's just a few. But sometimes our systems that we have in place have a disparate impact, right? Because it's facially neutral. The policy that's in place, when it's applied though, even though it seems benign, like it's going to affect everyone in the same way, it has this disparate impact, this huge impact on a specific protected class of people. That difference in treatment can be illegal discrimination, right? So for the most part, we have to have faith in our justice system, right? Because we need the protection. We want our communities to be safe. So we want to be able to rely on our police officers. I had a young person say to me, every time I go and get into my car, I feel like this is my day to die. He was a young African-American male who had at the time a bachelor's degree and now has a master's, and he said, every time I go get into the car, I wonder if it's my day to die. We are all human, we all discriminate, we all have biases. And anyone who says that they don't have a bias needs to go and reevaluate that statement, because we all have biases.
I can't wait to put on a camera. I wish it wouldn't take this long to get a camera, because I think that, like was said earlier, it keeps the honest cop honest, and it catches those who are doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
How do you exactly file a complaint or a claim against illegal discrimination?
File a complaint with the police department or with the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, or both. Back in 2013, the legislature, when they changed the law, they require now that every single time a person is pulled over by the police for a traffic stop, the police officer is supposed to hand them a little 3x5 card. I don't know if you can all see this. The card is in both English and Spanish, and it gives you instructions for how to file a complaint, and it lets you know that you have the right to file a complaint.
And so, my point is, like, if we're going to have better police-community relations, like, we have to go beyond the data. Like, we have to just believe people's experiences, right? Can we improve a policing system in our country whose origins are partly related to the slave patrols?
And I don't have an answer. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Chris, I will say this. That's why diversity is important, and also your police department should be a reflection of your community. That goes a long way.
When there is a complaint filed at any Connecticut Police Department, and you can access this online, you can access the complaint forms online, you can go to the state desk website and look at the post policy on police officer complaints against police officers, police misconduct, and that includes any racial profiling issue. When that internal affairs report is done, we are required to provide it to two different entities. One is the Chief State's Attorney's Office, and the second is to the Office of Policy and Management, and that's one of the functions that Ken and his staff help fulfill.
Policing is one of the residues of slavery. Slavery is the backbone of America. And the longer we try to ignore it, it's never going away. Our whole prison system is based on slavery.
Sometimes just acknowledging that there's a problem is the first step. And I think that's what everybody is trying to do today, is like acknowledge, okay, we get it, that there's an issue. And we just, now it's to the point where we could try to discuss like solutions on what's gonna start to combat that. And it first starts with like the point of view and educating people.
As a professional, I should be able to walk out, be a professional, not discriminate against people. I should be able to. So it's not about police, us learning how to deal with the police. The police and any other professional, even teachers, need to know how to deal with the community. We should not be afraid. Our kids should not be shot down and killed. Kids are dying. That's the difference. When kids are being shot because of their color of their skin, because of racism, because of being black, that's a serious situation. So what I have done in my life over 20-something years, channel the negativity in my society to try to help young people, to prevent them from getting in trouble in the first place, to try to educate the police, the teachers, the principals about how to treat kids and not to criminalize our children. That's the question right there, my brothers and sisters. How do we treat people with respect as professionals, as community? That's what it is about. It's not about all this other stuff.
We're community-minded. We need people to engage in the community. So I'm just saying I appreciate that, and I just wanted to publicly announce, make it public.
So I'm hoping that we will get to know each other, because that's critical. I said that initially. I'll repeat it again. Talking and listening to each other is how you overcome that gap.
We have become, the police and the state's attorneys and the public defenders have become social agents. We now take in not only people who are breaking the law, but also people who should be falling within the purview of mental health. We have now become the stepchildren in handling all of those cases because the money has dried up from DEMIS, the money has dried up from the Department of Mental Health. All of those things, those problems that you were discussing, have fallen upon the police and have fallen upon our system because we don't have the money to handle the addiction problems. We don't have money to handle the mental health problems, and that is really at root. And also, even more so, and I can speak from personal experience, we don't have the money to help children learn how to read. We have problems with the educational system, and everything is falling upon criminal justice. And I understand where you're coming from, and I agree with you. And I think if we can get monies refunneled to those people who are best able to serve those interests, be able to address addictions, address mental health, address reading problems, then we are going to lighten the load for the police, lighten the load for the criminal justice system, and those who should be in our system will be handled by us, but we don't have to worry about handling all those other issues. And I appreciate you noticing that the police are really handling so many different things, but thank you.
Thanks everyone for attending. Thank you everyone for attending, and don't leave here unless you talk to somebody. Please.